Part 1. The Echo of Fallen Stars. Lieutenant Derek Frost stood at the observation deck of the cloaked vessel Silent Prayer, watching as another human colony burned. Halathra 4, once a thriving mining outpost of 30,000 souls, now just another ember in the Kivith Empire's path of conquest. His fingers trembled against the reinforced glass, not from fear, but from a fury so deep it had crystallized into something cold and patient. "Status report," he said, voice steady despite the carnage before him. Behind him, Technical Officer Pyotr Volkov cleared his throat. Kivith forces have completed their sweep of the main settlement. Their harvester ships are beginning resource extraction. Standard procedure, they'll strip the planet bare within a week. The Kivith had appeared 3 years ago. Insectoid beings with carapaces like polished obsidian and eyes that glowed amber in their elongated faces. They communicated telepathically among themselves, but used translation devices when they bothered to speak to lesser species. Their technology outmatched humanity's by centuries. Earth had fallen within days. The colonies followed one by one. "Any survivors detected?" Derek asked, though he already knew the answer. "Negative, sir," Volkov replied. The Kivith were thorough. Derek closed his eyes briefly. Another genocide, another world of human screams silenced. When humanity first reached for the stars, they dreamed of peaceful contact, of knowledge shared among civilizations. Instead, they found the Kivith, who viewed all other sentient life as resources to be harvested or obstacles to be removed. "Lieutenant," came a new voice, softer but firm. Ship's physician Dr. Esther Mahajan approached, her dark eyes reflecting the burning world below. "We've intercepted a transmission. You need to see this." In the ship's cramped tactical room, Derek found Intelligence Officer Juno Wei already waiting. Her usually composed face was animated with something he hadn't seen in months, hope. "Play it," he ordered. A hologram flickered to life, a damaged message, fragments missing, but clear enough. A human woman in a lab coat, eyes intense despite her obvious exhaustion. "Project Orpheus successful. Bioweapon specifically targets Kivith neural pathways. Cannot be deployed from Earth. Need access to their central hive cluster. This is Dr. Rivka Stern, Lunar Research Station Epsilon, if anyone receives this." The message dissolved into static. The room fell silent. Juno spoke first. "Authentication confirms this is genuine. Dr. Stern was heading xenobiology research before the invasion. According to our records, Lunar Station Epsilon was destroyed in the first wave." "Apparently not completely," Derek muttered. Dr. Mahajan leaned forward. "A bioweapon that targets only Kivith biology? It's possible. Their neural structure is unlike anything we've encountered, primarily crystalline rather than carbon-based. Even if it exists, the message said it needs to be deployed at their central hive cluster," Volkov pointed out. "That's on their homeworld, in the heart of Kivith space. Millions of light years away. We'd never make it past their outer defenses." Derek stared at the frozen image of Dr. Stern. Hope was dangerous. Hope made you take risks. But after 3 years of watching humanity die world by world, perhaps risks were all they had left. "Plot a course for the Cygnus Divide," he said finally. "There's someone we need to find." The crew exchanged glances. "The Cygnus Divide is neutral territory," Juno said carefully. "Full of smugglers, mercenaries, and worse." "What's there?" "Not what. Who?" Derek's jaw tightened. "Admiral Takeo Yamamoto." The name hung in the air like a grenade. Yamamoto, once Earth's most decorated fleet commander, now branded a traitor. When the Kivith invasion began, he'd taken a third of Earth's remaining fleet and vanished rather than following orders to make a suicidal last stand. "Yamamoto was court-martialed in absentia," Volkov said. "He's considered a deserter. Or the smartest man in the galaxy," Derek countered. "He knew we couldn't win conventionally. But he didn't run. He's been building something out there. A resistance." "That's just rumors," Juno argued. "I've heard the same rumors," Dr. Mahajan said quietly. "Stories of Kivith supply ships disappearing. Distress signals from their outposts that suddenly go silent." Derek nodded. "If anyone has the resources to get us to the Kivith homeworld, it's Yamamoto, and I know how to find him." Before anyone could respond, the ship's AI, Nova, interrupted. "Alert. Kivith patrol detected. 2 cruisers entering the system. Stealth systems still operational." Derek asked. "Affirmative, but they're deploying sensor drones. Probability of detection increasing." Derek made his decision. "Prepare for immediate jump to secondary coordinates. We can't help these people anymore, but maybe we can still avenge them." As the Silent Prayer slipped away from the burning world, Derek took one last look at Halathra 4. Humanity had lost nearly everything, their homeworld, their colonies, their future. All that remained was a scattered few, hiding in the shadows between stars. And perhaps, if Dr. Stern was right, one last chance to strike back. Within moments, the ship vanished into the quantum fold, leaving only the echo of fallen stars behind them. The Kivith continued their harvest, unaware that the last fragments of humanity had just found something they'd lost months ago: purpose. In the darkness of the tactical room, Derek studied the navigational charts to the Cygnus Divide. Finding Yamamoto would be difficult. Convincing him to attempt a suicide mission to the Kivith homeworld would be nearly impossible. But for the first time since Earth fell, Lieutenant Derek Frost allowed himself to feel something dangerous. Hope. Part 2. Shadows Among Ruins. The Cygnus Divide was a lawless stretch of space where the rules of dead civilizations meant nothing. Once a contested border between two long-extinct alien empires, it had become a haven for those who preferred to exist in the margins. Perfect for a resistance that barely existed at all. Specialist Freya Nakamura adjusted her worn synth leather jacket as she navigated the crowded marketplace of Nexus Station, a massive retrofitted asteroid that served as the Divide's largest trading hub. Her dark hair was cut short, practical, with a streak of silver running through it despite her 35 years, a souvenir from narrowly escaping Earth's fall. Her eyes, constantly scanning, missed nothing. "Keep moving," she murmured into her subvocal communicator. "Our contact should be at the rusty airlock in 10 minutes. "Copy that," came Lieutenant Frost's voice. "Any sign we're being followed?" Freya glanced at the reflective surface of a merchant stall, checking behind her without turning. "Nothing obvious, but this place is crawling with eyes for hire." The marketplace itself was a cacophony of species, smells, and sounds. Beings from a dozen different worlds haggled over everything from black market tech to preserved Earth artifacts, the latter commanding absurd prices now that the planet was under Kivith control. Freya's stomach turned as she passed a vendor selling what he claimed was authentic human art from the Louvre, likely looted from the ruins of Paris after the invasion. "I hate this place," she muttered. "Focus on the mission," Derek replied calmly. "We find Yamamoto's representative, we get coordinates, we leave." Freya nodded, though no one could see it. Lieutenant Frost had been her commanding officer for only 8 months, but she trusted him more than anyone left alive. He had that rare quality of calm certainty, even when everything was falling apart. The rusty airlock was exactly what its name suggested, a dingy bar built into an old emergency airlock, its entrance a circular door that had seen better centuries. Inside, the lighting was dim, the air thick with smoke from exotic substances, and the clientele diverse but universally dangerous looking. Freya slid into a booth in the back corner, ordered something that wouldn't immediately poison her human physiology, and waited. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. "Something's wrong," she whispered. "Contact is late." Just as she prepared to leave, a shadow fell across her table. She looked up to see an enormous figure, vaguely humanoid but with ridged gray skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. A Drakari, a species known for their mercenary work and one of the few that had managed to maintain neutrality during the Kivith expansion. "You seek shadows and starlight," the Drakari rumbled in heavily accented standard, the recognition phrase. Freya responded carefully, only because darkness holds the truth. The Drakari nodded once and sat opposite her, the booth creaking under his weight. "I am not who you expected." "Where's our contact?" "Dead." The word landed like a stone. "Kivith infiltrators found him 3 cycles ago. I was his backup." Freya's hand instinctively moved toward her concealed blaster. "Prove you're with Yamamoto." The Drakari's upper set of eyes blinked slowly. He placed a small metallic disc on the table and slid it toward her. "This contains what you seek. The Admiral anticipated your coming." Freya didn't touch it. "That's impossible. We only decided to look for him days ago." "The Admiral has sources." The Drakari leaned forward. "He knows about the scientist. About Project Orpheus." That got her attention. They hadn't transmitted any information about Dr. Stern's message, fearing Kivith interception. "Why help us?" she asked bluntly. "Your kind has stayed neutral." The Kivith do not recognize neutrality. Only those who submit now and those who submit later. His 4 eyes fixed on her intently. "My people were once warriors before we became merchants. Some of us remember the old ways." Freya still hesitated. This could be an elaborate trap. The Drakari seemed to sense her hesitation. The Admiral said to tell you. Earth's fall was not the end, only the beginning of their mistake. He said you would understand. Freya's breath caught. Those were the exact words Yamamoto had broadcast during his final transmission before disappearing with his fleet. Words that had become a whispered mantra among the surviving human resistance. She took the disc. Where is he? The coordinates are there, encrypted. But reaching him will not be simple. The Drakari glanced around the bar. The station is compromised. Kivith agents are already closing in. As if on cue, the main entrance hissed open, and 3 figures entered, humanoid in shape, but moving with an unnatural synchronicity that marked them as Kivith puppets. Their eyes swept the room methodically. Back exit, Freya asked, already calculating escape routes. Blocked. The Drakari's hand moved to what she now realized was a weapon concealed under his thick cloak. Your ship. Can it be ready for immediate departure? Freya nodded, activating her comm. Derek, we're blown. Need immediate extraction. Docking Bay 7. On our way, came the terse reply. The Drakari stood, looming over the table. I will create a distraction. When I move, head for the service corridor behind the bar. You'll be killed, Freya said. The alien mercenary made a sound that might have been a laugh. Death comes to all eventually. The Kivith have simply accelerated the timeline. He fixed all 4 eyes on her. My people have a saying, honor is found not in how one lives, but in what one dies for. Before she could respond, the Drakari turned and walked directly toward the Kivith agents, pulling something from his cloak. Freya didn't wait to see what happened next. She slipped behind the bar as shouting erupted, followed by the distinctive whine of energy weapons. The service corridor was narrow and dimly lit. She ran, the sounds of chaos fading behind her. Through her comm, she could hear the silent prayer's engine spinning up as Derek prepared for emergency departure. She burst onto the docking platform just as the ship descended, its loading ramp already extending. A blast of energy scorched the wall inches from her head. More Kivith agents had followed. Freya returned fire, diving for the ramp as it began to close. Safe inside the ship, she felt the familiar lurch as they broke free of the station's artificial gravity. Through the viewport, she watched as explosive charges detonated across Nexus Station's main hub. The Drakari's distraction had been more extensive than she'd realized. Did you get it? Derek asked as she entered the bridge. Freya handed him the disc. Yamamoto knows we're coming. Somehow, he's been watching us. Derek examined the disc. Or he's been watching everything. This was his specialty before the invasion. Intelligence networks so deep even high command didn't know their full extent. Juno Wei took the disc and inserted it into a secure terminal. It'll take time to decrypt. Time we may not have, Dr. Mahajan said from her station. Kivith cruisers are already responding to the station incident. They'll be looking for us. Derek took the command chair. Set course for the Eridani Nebula. We can hide in the radiation fields while we work on the decryption. As the silent prayer accelerated away from the chaos they'd left behind, Freya stared at the stars streaking past. The Drakari had sacrificed himself without hesitation, an alien dying for a human cause. Perhaps they weren't as alone in this fight as they'd thought. Do you think it's real? She asked quietly. This bioweapon? Could it actually work? Derek didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice held that same calm certainty that had led her to follow him across the stars. It has to, he said simply. Because we're running out of alternatives. What no one said, what no one needed to say, was that humanity was also running out of time. With each passing day, the Kivith tightened their grip on conquered worlds, erasing human existence with methodical precision. Soon there would be nothing left to save. Freya touched the silver streak in her hair, remembering how she'd gotten it. Remembering what she'd lost. What they'd all lost. Then let's find the Admiral, she said, and end this war. Part 3. The Whisper Protocol. Admiral Takeo Yamamoto's base of operations wasn't what any of them had expected. Hidden within the heart of the Eridani Nebula lay a massive space station, cobbled together from the hulls of derelict warships and asteroid mining facilities. Its existence masked by the nebula's radiation interference, the station, codenamed Sanctuary, had become home to nearly 10,000 humans and a surprising number of alien refugees who had also suffered under Kivith expansion. It's incredible, Derek whispered as they approached in the silent prayer. The docking procedures were rigorous, multiple authentication checks, armed escort vessels, and finally a decontamination process that felt more like an interrogation. Only after 3 hours were Derek, Freya, Dr. Mahjong, and Juno finally cleared to meet the legendary admiral. He doesn't trust easily anymore, explained their guide, a stern-faced woman who introduced herself only as Commander Singh. None of us do. They were led through corridors teeming with activity, engineers repairing salvaged equipment, civilians tending to hydroponics gardens, and military personnel from what had once been a dozen different Earth nations, now united under a single cause. Admiral Yamamoto waited in what had once been the bridge of an Earth Republic dreadnought. At 62, he was leaner than his official portraits had shown him, his once black hair now completely white, his posture still military straight despite everything. The left side of his face bore burn scars, a reminder of his narrow escape during Earth's fall. "Lieutenant Frost," he said, voice surprisingly soft. "I've been following your activities with interest." Derek saluted instinctively. "Admiral, your disappearance was controversial." A ghost of a smile crossed Yamamoto's weathered face. "Desertion, they called it. Perhaps they were right. But I couldn't watch our fleets be sacrificed in pointless last stands." He gestured around him. "I chose to preserve what could be saved. And build something new," Freya observed. "Something necessary," the Admiral corrected. "Project Orpheus, you have the details?" Juno stepped forward with a data pad. "Dr. Rivka Stern's message and all we know about her bioweapon. It targets the Kivith neural pathways specifically, but needs to be deployed at their central hive cluster." Yamamoto studied the information, his expression unreadable. Then he pressed a button on his desk. "Have Ambassador Threll join us." Minutes later, the door slid open to reveal a being unlike any they'd encountered before. Tall and willowy with iridescent skin that seemed to shimmer between blue and green, for delicate arms, and eyes like liquid silver. "May I present Ambassador Threll of the Shivari Collective," Yamamoto said formally. "Our most valuable ally." The crew of the Silent Prayer stared in shock. The Shivari were legendary, an ancient, advanced species that had vanished from known space centuries ago. Most humans believe them extinct. "We have been watching," the Shivari said, voice melodic and strange. "Your struggle against the Hivith is also ours. Long ago, we too faced their hunger." "The Shivari retreated to the galactic rim 300 years ago," Yamamoto explained. "Not out of fear, but to prepare. They've been studying the Kivith longer than we've known they existed." Ambassador Threll approached the data pad, 2 of his 4 hands hovering over it without touching. "Dr. Stern's work is remarkable, but incomplete. The delivery system is flawed. Can you fix it?" Derek asked directly. The Shivari's silver eyes focused on him. "Yes, but the true challenge remains reaching the hive cluster on Kivith Prime. Their homeworld exists behind defenses that would destroy your vessels before you entered the system. That's why we needed to find the Admiral," Freya said. "We hoped he'd have a way in." Yamamoto exchanged a glance with the Shivari ambassador, some unspoken communication passing between them. Finally, he nodded. "We don't have a way in," the Admiral said gravely. "We have something better. We've discovered a way to bring them out." He activated a holographic display in the center of the room. A complex star map appeared, highlighting a remote system at the edge of Kivith territory. "This is the Vega outpost," he explained. "A Kivith communication hub that serves as a relay between their conquered territories and their homeworld. Our intelligence indicates that in 3 weeks, something unprecedented will happen. The Kivith sovereign, their ruling entity, will temporarily link its consciousness to this hub." Dr. Mahjong frowned. "What does that mean exactly?" Ambassador Threll answered, his voice taking on an almost reverent quality. "The Kivith are a collective consciousness. Individual drones linked to a central mind, the sovereign. It rarely extends itself beyond Kivith Prime, as doing so creates vulnerability." "Why would it take such a risk now?" Juno asked. "Because they're preparing for their final push," Yamamoto said grimly. "Our intelligence suggests they're planning to expand beyond human space, targeting 3 more species in neighboring sectors. The Sovereign needs to coordinate the massive troop movements directly." Derek began to understand. "So if we strike at this outpost during the connection, we can deliver Dr. Stern's bioweapon directly into the Sovereign's neural network," Yamamoto confirmed. "Not just killing drones, but potentially disrupting their entire collective consciousness." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. It wasn't just an attack, it was potentially the end of the Kivith as a unified force. "This is Operation Whisper," the Admiral continued. "A single, coordinated strike with everything we have left. We've been gathering ships, weapons, and allies for months in preparation. It's a suicide mission, Freya said quietly. Yamamoto didn't deny it. For many of us, yes. But with a real chance of success, our first since the war began. Threll moved closer, his iridescent skin pulsing with subtle patterns of light. My people will contribute our remaining stealth vessels and temporal disruptors. These may buy you the moments needed to deliver the weapon. We still need to retrieve Dr. Stern first, Derek pointed out. If she's still alive on what's left of Lunar Station Epsilon. Already in progress, Yamamoto revealed. I dispatched a team as soon as we intercepted her message. They should reach the lunar ruins within 48 hours. You've been busy, Admiral, Juno observed, not bothering to hide her admiration. When you're presumed dead, it simplifies operational security, he replied with a hint of dry humor. But now comes the difficult part. Lieutenant Frost, I need your ship and crew for a critical mission before the main assault. Derek straightened. Whatever you need, sir. The Kivith's defenses include a network of quantum sensors that can detect our approach. There's a control node in the Procyon system. It needs to be disabled precisely 18 hours before the main attack. Infiltration? Freya asked. Something like that, the Admiral said. My technical team will outfit your ship with specialized equipment. Ambassador Threll's people have provided technology that should allow you to approach undetected, but someone will need to manually upload a virus into their network. Dr. Mahajan spoke up. You're talking about sending someone physically into a Kivith facility? It's the only way, Threll confirmed. Their internal networks are isolated from external signals. Derek exchanged glances with his crew. They'd come looking for a chance, however slim, to strike back at the Kivith. Now they were being offered the opportunity to play a crucial role in what might be humanity's last stand. When do we leave? He asked simply. Yamamoto's scarred face showed a flicker of what might have been pride. Tomorrow at 0600. In the meantime, get some rest. See the medical bay if needed. His voice softened slightly. And perhaps take a moment to appreciate what we've built here. It may be the last gathering of free humans you ever see. As they were escorted out, Freya lingered, watching the Admiral and the alien ambassador return to their planning. A strange pair, the military commander of a defeated species and a being from a civilization that had chosen to hide rather than fight, until now. Do you think it can work? She asked Derek as they walked through Sanctuary's crowded corridors. Derek considered the question carefully. The odds are terrible, he admitted. But for the first time since Earth fell, they're not zero. In the artificial twilight of the station's habitation ring, that seemed like enough to hope for. Part 4. Defiance Beneath Shattered Skies. Colonel Imani Okafor stood on the bridge of the retrofitted colony ship Defiant Dawn, watching as the ragtag fleet assembled in the shadow of a dead moon. 73 vessels in total, from nimble fighters to lumbering cargo haulers repurposed as troop carriers. A pathetic force compared to Earth's once mighty armada, but it was everything that remained of humanity's military power, gathered together for one final gambit. Status report, she demanded, her West African accent crisp against the background hum of the ship's systems. Her second-in-command, Major Hector Reyes, consulted his display. Lieutenant Frost's team has successfully disabled the quantum sensor array in the Procyon system. The Kivith are blind to our approach vector. Dr. Stern is aboard the Whisper Actual with Admiral Yamamoto and has successfully integrated the Shivari modifications to her bioweapon. And our Shivari allies? 12 vessels, cloaked and in position along our flanks. Imani nodded, her close-cropped hair gleaming under the bridge lights. At 48, she had spent almost half her life in military service. Before the invasion, she had commanded Earth's largest off-world garrison on Mars. She was inspecting troops when the Kivith struck Earth, a coincidence that saved her life but left her with the burden of watching helplessly as her homeworld burned. The time is now 0500, the ship's AI announced dispassionately. T-1 hour to jump point. Imani activated the fleet-wide communication system. Her voice would reach every ship, every soldier, every survivor who had chosen to fight rather than hide. This is Colonel Okafor. In 1 hour, we make our final jump to Vega Outpost. Intelligence confirms the Kivith Sovereign has extended its consciousness into the outpost's communication hub as predicted. For the first time, it has made itself vulnerable. She paused, looking at the faces of her bridge crew, humans from a dozen different nations, now united as simply human, the last defenders of a species on the brink of extinction. 3 years ago, they came to our worlds bringing death. They believed us weak, divided, easy prey. Her voice hardened. Today, we show them how wrong they were. Today, humanity fights not just for vengeance, but for all the species who will fall if the Kivith remain unchecked. She could almost feel the tension across the fleet. Fear, determination, the brittle hope that had sustained them through years of loss and retreat. Remember those we've lost. Fight for those who remain. Operation Whisper commences in 1 hour. Okafor out. The bridge fell silent after her transmission ended. Major Reyes approached, speaking softly, so only she could hear. The casualty projections are severe, Colonel. I'm aware, Major. She stared at the tactical display, the blinking dots representing their small fleet. But we're out of alternatives. Even if we ran, where would we go? How long before they find us again? I wasn't questioning the mission, ma'am, Reyes clarified. Just making sure you're prepared for the cost. Imani almost smiled. The cost was paid the day Earth fell, Hector. Everything since has been borrowed time. On the lower decks of the Defiant Dawn, troops prepared for battle. Not the traditional kind. They couldn't hope to defeat the Kivith in direct combat, but specialized insertion teams trained to protect the science team long enough to deploy the bioweapon. Among them was Freya Nakamura, checking her tactical gear one final time. Lieutenant Frost worked beside her, his face set in grim concentration. Nervous? She asked. Terrified, he replied honestly. But ready. Their role was critical part of the team that would escort Dr. Stern directly into the communication hub while the fleet engaged Kivith defenses as a diversion. A suicide mission by any reasonable assessment. I never asked, Freya said suddenly. What did you lose when Earth fell? Derek paused in his preparations. My younger brother. He was studying in Tokyo. And my parents in Chicago. He looked up at her. You. Everything, she said simply. My wife. Our daughter. Our home in New Zealand. She secured her weapon harness with practiced efficiency. It's strange. For 3 years, all I've wanted is revenge. Now that we might actually get it, I just keep thinking about them, wondering if they'd recognize what I've become. Before Derek could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. All personnel to battle stations, the AI announced. Anomaly detected. Unknown vessels emerging from hyperspace. In the command bridge, Imani watched in horror as the sensor displays lit up with new contacts, dozens, then hundreds of them, appearing at the edge of their sensor range. Kivith vessels? She demanded. Negative, the sensor officer replied, confusion evident in his voice. Configuration unknown, not matching any known signatures. The main view screen activated, showing a massive fleet of sleek, crystalline ships emerging from hyperspace like ghostly predators. Their design was unlike anything human or Kivith. Organic curves blended with geometric precision, their hull shimmering with energy patterns that defied analysis. We're being hailed, the communications officer reported. Imani hesitated only a moment. Put it through. The view screen shifted to show a being that resembled the Shivari ambassador Threll, but with subtle differences, skin darker, almost midnight blue, eyes that seemed to contain galaxies. I am High Commander Nexus of the Shivari Defense Collective, the being announced in perfect standard. We received Ambassador Threll's call. The hidden fleets have returned to known space. A murmur ran through the bridge crew. The hidden fleets were considered a myth, the legendary armada of the Shivari that had disappeared centuries ago, supposedly to escape Kivith expansion. This is Colonel Imani Okafor of the Human Resistance. She responded, fighting to keep her voice steady. Your timing is unexpected, but not unwelcome, I trust. The Shivari commander replied with what might have been amusement. We have monitored your preparations. Your courage is admirable, but your plan would have resulted in the extinction of your species, even in success. We were prepared for that cost. Unnecessary sacrifice is not courage, Colonel. It is waste. The Shivari's tone became solemn. We retreated centuries ago not out of cowardice, but to prepare. To gather allies from across the stars. To build weapons capable of ending the Kivith threat forever. Imani struggled to comprehend what she was hearing. You're saying you can defeat them. Together, we will. The bioweapon your scientist has created will still play a crucial role. But now, it will be delivered by ships that can actually reach their target and survive. Hope, dangerous, fragile hope, blossomed in Imani's chest for the first time in years. Your fleet will join with ours, Commander Nexus continued. Our vessels can shield yours from Kivith weapons. This will not be humanity's last stand, Colonel. It will be the first battle of the Reclamation. Part 5. Legacy of the Vanquished. The battle for Vega Outpost would later be recognized as the turning point in the galactic conflict, the moment when the seemingly invincible Kivith Empire revealed its vulnerability. But for those fighting amid the chaos of space combat, it was simply a desperate struggle for survival. The Shivari fleet moved with impossible grace, their crystalline ships absorbing Kivith energy weapons and returning fire with weapons that seemed to bend the fabric of space itself. Human vessels darted between the larger alien ships, targeting communication arrays and engine systems with precision strikes. Aboard a Shivari stealth insertion craft, Dr. Rivka Stern clutched her modified bioweapon delivery system, a device no larger than a human forearm that contained the work of 3 years hidden in lunar shadows. Beside her sat Lieutenant Derek Frost, Freya Nakamura, and a team of Shivari warriors whose liquid metal armor rippled like water. "We're approaching the central hub," the Shivari pilot announced. "Temporal disruption field active. We will have approximately 12 minutes before the Kivith systems adapt." Derek checked his weapon one final time. That's 12 minutes to change history. The insertion was textbook, the small craft docking with the massive Kivith communication hub as battle raged around them. The station's defenses, focused on the larger threat, failed to detect their approach until they were already inside. The Kivith defenders they encountered moved with the eerie synchronization of a hive mind, insectoid forms with obsidian carapaces and weapons that grew organically from their limbs. But they were unprepared for the combined tactics of human desperation and Shivari technology. "This way," Freya called, consulting the schematics they'd obtained from Shivari intelligence. "The central core is 3 levels down." They fought their way through narrow corridors, Dr. Stern protected in the center of their formation. The scientist's face was grim with determination. She had survived 3 years in the ruins of a lunar base, working with salvaged equipment and stolen Kivith biological samples, all for this moment. The central core was a vast chamber dominated by a pulsing crystalline structure, the neural interface where the Kivith sovereign had extended its consciousness. Tendrils of bioluminescent energy writhed around it, forming patterns too complex for human minds to interpret. "That's our target," Dr. Stern said, already preparing the delivery system. "Get me close enough to inject the bioweapon directly into the neural matrix." Derek and Freya took defensive positions as Shivari warriors engaged the remaining Kivith guards. Dr. Stern approached the pulsing core, her hands steady despite everything. "For Earth," she whispered, activating the injection sequence. The reaction was immediate and catastrophic. The bioluminescent tendrils flared brilliant white, then began to darken from their ends inward, like dying veins. Throughout the station, Kivith drones began to convulse, their coordinated movements dissolving into chaotic spasms. "It's working," Dr. Stern breathed. "The bioweapon is spreading through their neural network." A deep, alien scream seemed to reverberate through the structure itself, not a sound but a psychic wave of agony that even the humans could feel pressing against their minds. "Time to go," Derek ordered, "before this whole place comes apart." The retreat was chaos, corridors filled with disoriented Kivith drones, systems failing as the controlling intelligence that guided them collapsed. They barely reached the insertion craft before the station began to break apart, structural integrity compromised as automated systems failed. From the command bridge of the Defiant Dawn, Colonel Okafor watched in as the massive Kivith outpost seemed to fold in on itself, energy discharges cascading across its surface. "It's not just the outpost," Major Reyes reported, staring at sensor readings in disbelief. "We're getting reports from across the sector. Kivith ships going dark, drones on occupied worlds collapsing." The neural network, Imani realized. The bioweapon is spreading through their entire command structure. High Commander Nexus's voice came through the communication system. "As we predicted, the Sovereign's direct connection to this hub has become its undoing. What affects it now affects all connected to it." "And the Kivith homeworld?" Imani asked. "Already our long-range sensors detect massive disruptions in Kivith Prime's defensive systems. The Empire is collapsing from within." There was a pause. "Your Dr. Stern has accomplished what centuries of warfare could not." 3 days later, representatives from 24 species gathered aboard the Shivari command vessel. Some were survivors of Kivith conquest, others allies who had joined the Shivari during their centuries of preparation. At the center of the gathering stood the humans, Admiral Yamamoto, Colonel Okafor, Dr. Stern, Lieutenant Frost, Specialist Nakamura, and others who had fought to keep hope alive when all seemed lost. The Kivith are not destroyed, High Commander Nexus explained to the assembly. But their hive mind is shattered, their drones reduced to primitive, uncoordinated states. It will be generations before they could pose a threat again, if ever. What happens now? Admiral Yamamoto asked, voicing the question on every human's mind. Earth was still occupied, their colonies in ruins. Now, the Shivari commanders said, we rebuild. Together. The reclamation of your worlds begins today. Derek stood at a viewport later, watching as the combined fleet prepared to jump toward Earth, the first step in reclaiming humanity's homeworld. Freya joined him, her expression thoughtful. Did you ever think we'd see this day? She asked. No, he admitted. I thought we were fighting for a memory, not a future. And now, Derek gazed at the stars, the same stars that had watched him passively as humanity nearly perished, and now witnessed their unlikely resurrection. Now I think we have a chance to build something better than what we lost. He glanced at the gathering of species behind them. Former enemies united by survival, newfound allies joining a fragile coalition. Not just for humans, but for everyone the Kivith would have destroyed. In the command center, Dr. Stern reviewed data from liberated Kivith worlds with Shivari scientists, already planning modifications to help free the billions of beings still under direct Kivith neural control. Colonel Okafor and Admiral Yamamoto mapped out the systematic campaign to reclaim human territory, world by world. The last guardian of Earth's legacy had not been a weapon or a fleet or even a desperate last stand. It had been hope, fragile, stubborn, irrational hope that refused to die even when logic said it should. As the fleet jumped toward Earth, carrying the remnants of humanity back to their shattered homeworld, Lieutenant Derek Frost allowed himself to feel something he had almost forgotten. Not just hope this time, but certainty. The stars would remember this day, not as the end of humanity's story, but as the beginning of its most remarkable chapter.